Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to wait another minute before we get started for people to join the Zoom. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Truc Nguyen, and I'm the manager of storytelling and strategy for the Chang School. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the land upon which Toronto Metropolitan University is built. Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. I want to pay my respects to the Indigenous peoples, elders, and ancestors who stewarded and cared for nature and the people who lived on the land where Toronto Metropolitan University is located today. At TMU, we have made a deep and long-lasting commitment to truth and reconciliation. I invite you to learn more about this work online. Now, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's session. Your microphone is muted throughout the event so as not to disturb other attendees or the presenters. For the hearing impaired, we have automated captioning available, which you can access in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. You will also have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing them into the questions box in the control panel. You can send in your questions when prompted during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation, or you can sort of enter them in as you think of them. Also, be sure to check your inbox tomorrow, as we will be sending you an email with common FAQs about the certificates. Now, I would like to introduce our presenters for today: James Warwick, Academic Coordinator for the Certificate in Film Studies; Meg Taylor, Academic Coordinator for the Publishing Certificate at the Chang School; Calvin Kong, also an Academic Coordinator for the Chang School, the Publishing Program; and our guest speaker, Noah Van Brink. James will first provide an overview of the Summer Film School, and then Meg and Calvin will provide an overview of the Publishing Intensive. And Noah will share his experience in the Publishing Intensive program. He took the intensive last summer and now works in book publishing. Both of these certificates are offered as fast-track programs this summer. And then at the end of the presentations, we will answer all of your questions. So welcome, everyone. James?
Hello and welcome, everyone. James Warwick. I'm the Academic Coordinator for the Summer Film School. And so we have a program that lasts 12 weeks. The intensive is a really focused on hands-on. So, do we have the slide presentation? Great. That's the publishing one. Need the film one, thank you. Great, okay. Thank you, you can go to the next one, thanks. So, as I said, we focus on hands-on, and it's interesting, we get quite a number of people who have done some study in film and people within the industry, etc. And they come because they want to make films. And so that's what our main focus is, teaching you the skills, techniques, the equipment to enable you to make films. And so that's exactly what you will be doing. So we start out with film, the traditional medium for filmmaking. And the reason for that is pedagogically, there are great benefits to that. You really get to understand what a shot is and other elements of the film language, which are quite crucial to understanding how you can put a film together, acquiring the image with film really sharpens skills for seeing light, etc., which is absolutely, of course, fundamental to having an image. And we also teach you how, in terms of the film language, how to put those elements together. After you've captured the images, the really crucial aspect then, of course, is learning editing. That's really where the films are made. No matter what kind of film, they're really made in the editing process. So those skills for editing techniques to be able to be creative with your editing, etc., those are the kinds of things we focus on. So we teach you the tools. We teach you the language of film, how to present your ideas, etc., in with the language of film, and a variety of different kinds of techniques which you can experiment with yourself, and you can learn a lot just watching other people's work as you learn these various techniques, etc., that you can watch for. So the creative industries is really a wide open opportunity, and I'll talk a little bit more about what those opportunities might be. Nowadays, I'm sure we're all quite aware of the fact that it's a very visual oriented culture. We see promotion, advertising, publicity everywhere. I mean, particularly on the internet, it's inescapable no matter where you go on the internet, or even in space, in our environment. If you go to Dundas Square, I'm sure anybody's been in Dundas Square, you're just inundated with all the visuals, etc., in that space. And it's no different on the transit, anywhere. We could go on and on. So all of those aspects that create those elements, whether they're graphic elements or whatever, they all fall within the creative industries, and they all overlap because there's a huge amount of collaboration between the creative industries that results in all of that material that we see day in and day out. Can I go to the next slide, please? So the focus really is obviously for us as filmmakers screen-based media. But as I mentioned, there is a huge amount. I mean, you think of nowadays when you turn your monitor on, you probably are interconnected to all the streaming services that are available. Not to mention YouTube, Vimeo, on and on it goes. So anything and everything that's on the internet is what I refer to as screen-based. But we also, teach a great deal of the fundamentals with movies, and that's really an essential reference point for us. And so I'm not excluding movies and or episodic television. In fact, movies and episodic television are really kind of the key media that we basically teach to and for, because our focus is really, while it's hands-on, the focus is also on storytelling. So storytelling can be, pretty much anything you want to choose in terms of things, I've mentioned, almost everything. I mean, all of advertising, any kind of promotion, on and on it goes. It's all storytelling, journalism. I mean, everything that you see, watch, hear, generally speaking, is some kind of form of storytelling. And of course, it certainly is one for us. So we have one of our courses which is specifically focused on screenwriting and how to write for the screen, how to format for the screen. So you'll learn how to format for episodic television, for movies, or even for a short film or a webisode, things of that sort. These are all possible screen-based media. And you'll be learning the fundamentals to be able to create the stories and establish a basis for presentation and pitching your ideas to other people. That screenwriting and formatting and all that is kind of fundamental to all those kinds of things. So content creators, that's certainly one of our focuses. Many people who have gone through our program have either started their own company, work for established content creators, or become content creators themselves. And the forms of distribution, some of which I've mentioned, there are lots of those. For students who are really focused on storytelling, we encourage them to do short films. Short films are kind of the route to bigger things. So doing short films, getting those short films into festivals, participating in, and there are like literally thousands of festivals around the world. I mean, there are hundreds just in Toronto every year, and there are many of them. There is an opportunity for exposure, for networking, and getting other people to see your work, etc. So that is, there are avenues here which we would encourage people to follow, to go in those kinds of paths. Another thing is that we are really focused on the voice of emerging artists. That's definitely key things that we're looking for, opportunities to encourage you in different areas that you might be showing some inclination, or etc. And it really is, the secret is to start small, to start preparing and creating your own portfolio, whether you want to be an editor in the industry, or a cinematographer, or a sound designer, or whatever area you might want to focus on. We try to help you learn the tools and the techniques to be able to do that. And so really our focus is on emerging artists. A lot of the people who come into our program do also come from other areas, like come from being graphic artists or being in front of the camera. We get lots of people who are actors, and people who are crew people on sets, but haven't really learned the formal tools, etc., to make their own films. So all of that is something that we're very aware of, and we encourage. Also, you'll learn we have a course focused on business aspects of filmmaking. And in that, we'll point you to the areas that support emerging filmmakers. So there are funds available, public funds, private funds, commercial funding that's available. There's actually quite a bit. And recently, Ontario Creates, other funding bodies, both public and private, have been looking for new ways to expand and to go into, let's say, acknowledge some of the new media opportunities, and to acknowledge where where the audience is going to get their entertainment, to get their information, etc. And those are changing. And so we recognize that, and we'll also make you aware of where opportunities might be for support in these kinds of screen-based media projects. Can I have the next slide, please? So in the film school, as I said, we're very much hands-on. In production one, you will make at least 3 films. You could make more, but at least 3 short films. Each one is focused on a particular objective in terms of learning, and particular goals to achieve in learning the equipment, learning the language of film, etc. All those kinds of things. And in production two, you'll make more films. And then you have an opportunity in technology classes to experiment and to practice techniques, etc. And then also, because the course is designed to go through the phases of production. So you'll start with the basics, and as you go through the different courses, things will get more complex, obviously, and but you'll be doing new things based on skills and knowledge that you've already gained. So we're constantly moving forward, building on that knowledge and those skills, and so by the time you've got to production two, you've learned a variety of techniques for image capture, sound recording, editing, and once you've got some of those fundamentals down, then you can really sort of look at being a little bit more experimental and exploring a variety of different techniques and what have you in areas that you might have a keen interest. So the other thing we focus on that's really important is best practices. Teach you techniques that are best practices for all of these. For instance, lighting, lighting techniques, lighting design, best practices for that to not only capture a good-looking image, but also to capture an image that's expressive. That's certainly a big part of storytelling. As filmmakers, we translate what's on the page into images, and there is an element of interpretation, an element of expression, and those are the things that make up for an artist's voice. And so we're helping to build those capabilities for you. So we will focus eventually through the program on post-production processes, which gives you some new alternatives to be able to integrate some more complex techniques and things of that sort, and some techniques that will give you an opportunity to polish your work. And of course, best practices for different kinds of media that you might put on the internet or wherever it's going to be used. There are best techniques for a variety of different screen-based media. So whatever that individual media is that you're preparing things for, there are best practices to get the best results and things of that sort. So those are also things that we focus on. So we also focus on giving you practice in presenting proposals. So every project you do, you would do a pitch. It's really important to practice pitches and to learn to do pitching, because no matter what kind of area you go into in screen-based media, etc., to advance generally within those creative industries, you will have to learn to present your own ideas, and the more skilled you get at that, the better. So we include that in the practices within the program as well. So you will learn essentially all what we call the key creative positions in filmmaking. So you will learn script writing, so writing, the basic fundamental writing. You'll learn directing screen performance. You'll learn directing for camera. You'll learn producing. What does the producer do? You'll learn all of those things. You'll learn all what an editor does, what the skills of an editor, the skills of a sound recordist and a sound designer. Now, not necessarily you will be choosing to do all of these things. You may do one category and think, oh, gee, I never want to do that again. I hate that. But you'll be exposed to all of these things, so you can make choices. So the two reasons why we do that, so that we can make you an all-round filmmaker, aware of all the things that go into it and what everybody does. And even if you choose to be a producer, you'll know what all of those other people on your team are doing, what their functions are. So you know what the expectations are, and you can make evaluations about, how successful different things are, et cetera, and have an awareness of overall, you know, what's going on, what has to happen, et cetera, through an individual production. So we try to be creating and supporting the artistic voice, but also at the same time giving you enough of the skills to be able to actually, go out and do your own work. And we have, many people have gone through the program and, gone out and right away done things like music videos for musicians or corporate videos or this or that. So you will learn enough of the fundamentals to be able to do those things yourself. Also, the program has created a lot of teams in itself. That's very common within the industry. When you work with other people and you learn with other people, it often is where a team that worked together for a long period of time kind of gels, and that initial team goes on to make more and more work. So go on to the next slide. Or is that my? So career paths, just very quickly, as I mentioned, areas of promotion, publicity, advertising, all kinds of sectors: music, fashion, webisodes, video games. The skills that you'll learn: editing, writing for copywriting, art directing, producing, all of these categories, we'll be touching on them, so you'll have some sense of what all of these are. Other areas you might go into might be animation, visual effects, sound, design, all, numerous things. So that gives you a kind of a glimpse of what we do, what you can expect from the program, and where you might go after.
Thank you so much, James, for the great presentation. We'll definitely, give you a chance to answer questions shortly, but I did want to pass it over to Noah and Meg to talk about the publishing certificate. Noah is our special guest today. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, he was a student in the intensive last summer and currently works in book publishing. So welcome, Noah.
Thank you very much, Truck. Meg, would you like me to sort of jump right in and introduce myself and where I'm working currently? Would that be best?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Noah. I'm currently working as an intern at Simon & Schuster Canada, which is located in the head office is located in Toronto. So I'm actually calling in from the office today. And my job as it sits right now, my intern work, is generally geared towards supporting the work of the publicists and the vice president of publicity at Simon & Schuster. And this involves a lot of different things, most of which involve info tracking related to publicity. So for instance, I'm responsible for tracking what kind of media attention we get on all of our focus titles. So out of the thousands of titles that Simon & Schuster publishes every year, the publicity department decides there are a select number that we want to focus on and spend money on and try and get media attention for. And every time we do get a media hit, I'm the one who tracks that and puts it in the database. I'm also in charge of distributing various review copies for influencers, media, journalists, etc. So I'm in charge of getting those sent out from the office. I've assisted running a bunch of events for authors, specifically book signings and book launches. I track stock that comes into the office. I advertise weekly for author events to the office, just so all the departments know which of our authors are having events the upcoming week. And I have had a chance as well to pitch a select number of titles to various festival organizers that we've met with over the last 4 or 5 months. This is the festival heavy season as we're anticipating everything happening in the fall. So festival organizers are meeting with us now and asking what kind of titles we have that we think they would want to present in the fall. So that's a brief summary, I think, of my events, or my, excuse me, my work right now.
I have a quick question for Noah. Do you feel that the intensive trained you to be able to hit the ground running at Simon & Schuster? Were you able to just jump in?
Yes, and Meg, you've anticipated my answer to a later question, so I'll answer that now. I would say that the intensive certainly helped me jump right in, especially because in my application process for this position, I was asked to complete an assignment that was almost identical to the final project for the publicity course. So in that course, I was tasked with crafting a pitch for a particular title and designing an author campaign, a publicity campaign for that title to try and generate as much publicity, attention, and ultimately sales of that book. And for this current job that I hold now, my supervisor and another publicist asked me to do essentially the same thing for one of their titles that I'd never seen before. So they said, within a day, can you come up with a short pitch as how you would try and convince somebody, a media person, to promote this book? So that was very, very helpful and very, very comforting to kind of go, oh, I know how to do this. I've done this before. So yeah.
No, that's great. Can you what was your motivation for choosing the publishing intensive program? Like, did you have any experience before you started, or?
I didn't have any direct experience in book publishing. Back in 2020, just as the pandemic hit, I was finishing up my master's in literature. And by the time I reached that stage, I still love literature, but I wanted to get out of the university setting, at least for a little while, because I was starting to feel a little bit siloed off from regular life, so to speak. I felt a little bit disconnected from what ordinary Canadians read generally. I wasn't necessarily reading stuff that you would find in Indigo or what have you. So I wanted to pursue a career that was directly involved with literature. I didn't want to give that up, but I also wanted to somehow find a way to work in an industry that still felt connected to daily life, regular people. And of course, that is exactly what book publishing is. We're constantly catering to the general public, which is great.
That's really great. So I know you spoke a little bit about this already, but what are some of the skills that you developed in the program?
So because the intensive is, at least for me, Meg, you can correct me if the format's different for this year, but for me, it was 6 courses over 12 weeks. So it was a very, very quick introduction. And the intensive is set up so that there are courses focused on various areas of the publishing industry. So I took a course in general introduction, copywriting, publicity, production, visual design, etc. So one of the main skills I think I took away from the intensive, which I really value, is the ability to communicate clearly and effectively with different people in different sectors of the industry. Editorial has a very different set of concerns, even a different kind of language than publicity. Because I took the intensive, I feel confident enough to be able to communicate with the different departments when I need to, and also understand what they need from me, so that I can be most helpful to them if, as an intern, I'm kind of moving fluidly between departments. So that was one skill that I really, really value. If I may, there's also, it was really nice in the intensive to be able to work with peers that were from various different backgrounds. James alluded to this a little bit in his presentation about learning from each other, learning from people on a team. I felt the same way in the publishing intensive, where my classmates were interested in literature, but came from wildly different backgrounds. And it was nice to kind of learn about new areas in the industry from them that I maybe wouldn't have come across, in addition to obviously learning from the instructors, who are a great, great network to join.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And be cognizant of your time. Is there anything else you want to add about, your experience with the publishing program and the intensive in particular?
Only to say, I think, again, that I'm really grateful to the intensive for helping me feel confident communicating with various different people. Attention to detail is so crucial in this industry, and I don't think I even fully appreciated that coming out of the intensive. I understood it in the intensive, but it's become far more clear to me being in publicity, just because of how much is happening all the time. Publishing dates are moving around constantly. Different departments need different things at different times, and even within the span of a week, the situation on a particular book might have changed. And so yeah, I'm really grateful to the intensive for sort of drilling home the importance of clear, effective communication, but also giving us the knowledge base in a variety of different subjects that make me feel like I can kind of be a jack of all trades to a point before I really start specializing in my career. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time, and I know you have to run, but we really appreciate it. And
thank you very much for having me, Truck.
Thank you so much, Noah.
Good to be with you all. Thank you.
So now I'm going to pass it over to Meg to talk about the publishing intensive. We can start the presentation.
Yes. Okay, so the next slide, please. And before I jump into the what we're going to cover, I wanted to pick up on something that that Noah mentioned. Many people decide to become, say, an editor, and they study all sorts of editorial courses. But if they don't have the ability to communicate with other departments and understand how we make books, how the publishing industry works, it will be very difficult for them to succeed. And Noah really touched on that when he talks about coming from a master's program in literature. He probably would like to end up in editorial. I'm not sure. He seems to be really enjoying the publicity department, but no matter where you are, if you understand what the other departments are doing and have some basic skills, and he mentioned vocabulary, different terminology that's used in different departments, that is really essential to being able to communicate across those departments and to do a good job. So what we're going to cover today, I'll give you an overview of what the courses and the schedule. There are 6 courses Noah mentioned. We start with the 2 overviews. There's a trade publishing overview. Those are the books that are in the bookstores, and the editorial, marketing, and sales that are all components of those. So you get a very clear sense of how the trade publishing industry works. Then we do, the second course is the educational publishing overview. And there we're focusing mostly on the textbook industry, but also scholarly and reference publishing. I'm sorry, my voice is a little hoarse today. Then we jump into editorial training. That's a very tough course, but you will have been exposed to it to some extent in the first 2 overviews. And then we do a visual skills course, which is an introduction to design and visual literacy. So whether you go into production and design, or you just need to understand how visuals work. I mean, Andrew alluded to, James alluded to this earlier in his discussion of film studies. Ours is a visual culture. This is very much affecting the book publishing industry as well. You will need to be visually literate, even if you're working primarily with words. So the visual skills course gives you that, and basic understanding of Adobe Suite, that kind of thing. Then we do production, and that's everything from print through to digital. And it's a very exciting course. It includes field trips and hands-on. They're hands-on exercises in all of the courses, but in production, we really get into hands-on, and the design course. So design and production are very hands-on. And then finally, the publicity course that Noah mentioned was so helpful to him in his internship at Simon & Schuster. Each course has 2 weeks. It really is a boot camp structure. You're there in the classroom from or the Mac lab in some cases from 9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. And then often into the evening, you'll be working with your team. You cannot expect to be holding a job during this period. You will see your children to tuck them in at night if you have children, but that's about it. Why don't we move to the next slide? Yes. So I described the 6 courses. You're going to complete 6 of the 8 courses required to graduate with the certificate. But after the intensive, many people find, as Noah did, many people find internships or even entry-level positions, and then complete those, they'll do those 2 courses as needed over the following year. There's no pressure on you to complete the certificate I think you have 5 years altogether, but this intensive is a fast-track program. It covers all of the current practices, professional level training in both trade and educational publishing, and a lot of skills-based training. So you really can hit the ground running if you do an entry-level position or internship. So next slide, please. I've gone over these courses with you. They're listed here in the sequence of the numbers, so 100, 102, 103, and so on. But the actual sequence in the intensive is the 2 overviews first, then the editorial course, which as I said, is very difficult. So we're doing that when you're still fresh and can really jump into it. Then we do visual skills for publishing. And then we end the last month, the final 4 weeks with production and publicity. You'll see it's 12 weeks, just as the film intensive is. And not only is there a full schedule of in-class instruction and group work, but you will have one-on-one instructor support throughout. There will be guest speakers, there will be field trips, and it's just very exciting. I mean, Noah mentioned how wonderful it is to work in a team with your peers. These are people that in many cases will be your cohort in the industry as you progress in your career. These are people that you may work with at Simon & Schuster, then at Penguin, then at Anansi, a Canadian independent. We move around a bit as we work up in our careers as in all industries. And so you will have a chance to work with these people again. So these relationships are very important, not just with your instructors who are leaders, professional leaders in publishing, but also your peers. Okay, next slide, please. So in book publishing, I mentioned trade, educational, scholarly, and reference publishing. Those are the big ones. But there are many specialty publishers as well. Then there's literary magazine and academic journal publishing. There are quite a few jobs in those areas, and publishing in corporate, nonprofit, and government communications. And I would include their university institutes, that kind of thing. Anything that generates publications, any organization that generates publications, you will be able to transfer these skills. So you're not limited to book publishing. And the roles within the industry, business includes everything from acquisitions of properties to contracts, rights, how to read a P&L statement. I mean, this is something that even editors need to do because we're very much involved in, I'm an editor, we're very much involved in the acquisition and development of properties. Editorial is next, and sales is essential. And sales is I would say, a very large area and not easy to break into, but editorial is very difficult to break into. Sales and marketing less so, and there are more opportunities there. Production and design, if you really like to get your hands in and and get creative. And it's a very exciting area these days. There are lots of new technologies, and I'm not just talking about digital, I'm talking about new ways, new print technologies as well. Next slide, please. These are industry trends. So we have a rapid rise in audiobooks, and we have a new course there, audiobook publishing and production. This is only a half-term course, and as is the accessible publishing and production. That's the next bullet there. What we're trying to do with all of our new courses is keep on top of the trends and give you the training that you need to get new jobs as they're created, and also to keep very much up to date. If you're in the industry, many people come back to us and do professional development. So these are designed for example, if you do the intensive in the fall or even the winter or spring term following the intensive, you would want to do some specialty courses like that. Number 3 here, the growth of jobs that require training in digital publishing and marketing. Absolutely essential to have those skills, no matter what department you end up in. And of course, a growing interest in BIPOC authors, and mostly fiction. And our courses are constantly being revised, and we always include new examples of success in these areas. And I think the last slide is coming. Questions, yes. Do we have questions?
We do have some questions. So James, I'm going to invite you to going back in. We have a questions in the chat for both of you. So we'll start with the publishing intensive, Meg. Someone is wondering, what will a typical day of the publishing intensive look like?
You show up at before 9. It starts right at 9, so you want to get there early. It runs through until 4 o'clock most days. There are breakout sessions, exercises. There is some group work, team development, essential in our industry. And for courses that require the Mac Lab, there are 2 courses where you have access, not only access, the course is conducted in the Mac Lab. It's a state-of-the-art Mac Lab. So you're using the software and hardware that you would use in the job. Yeah, it's intense. And every evening you're working too. So as I mentioned before, you can't expect to be holding even a part-time job during these 3 months.
Thank you, Meg. I was gonna say, as people are entering their questions into the chat, if you could specify whether it's for the publishing intensive or the film school, the summer film school, or both, that would be very helpful for me. So the next question is for James. Do all the required courses happen simultaneously throughout the 3 months, or are there multiple periods during the 3 months?
Yeah, I was just looking at that question. Yes, the structure is that you are simultaneously getting a variety of courses. So you'll be getting fundamentals in image acquisition, shooting techniques, etc., learning language, film, learning some of the technology, the writing courses. They will overlap. So as you're moving forward, you're getting these skills, and you're actually also applying them, of course, because you'll be making films as you go along.
That's great. I guess that answers my next question, but someone is also asking, do film intensive students have access to equipment?
They certainly do. It's pretty impossible to make a film without getting access. And access is, again, it's progressive. We start with basic tools. We actually start with film. So the first thing you learn to use is a film camera, not a digital camera. It's film. You shoot black and white film. We have our own processing lab. You'll get a digital copy, a positive of the film you shot, and then you will be editing that. And so, yeah, and eventually we get on to sound. You'll learn sound equipment, how to use that, how to use it in the editing process, etc. So progressively, you get more and more equipment, more and more sophisticated equipment as we progress along.
Perfect. Thank you so much for answering the questions, James. Moving back to publishing, there's sort of two questions that are related. Anthony is wondering what kind of guidance will we get for acquiring our first internship? And they specify that it's about the publishing program. And there's another question about, for the publishing intensive, are there opportunities to get placed in a publishing house? And what are the perks/benefits? I'm not sure if that's just about the internship or, the certificate in general.
Yeah. Kelvin, you run the job postings, the job board. Would you like to answer that?
Yeah, sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Wonderful. Okay, so the first question, because we're a part-time program, we try to offer as much flexibility for our students as possible, for students who have other priorities such as job, family care, other schooling and whatnot. So unlike the other publishing programs, which are full-time and that do require an internship component as part of their graduation, we do not. So for us, the internship is an option only. That said, we do receive internship postings from publishers, which I do share on the job board. And as a publishing student, you do have access to it for a year after you take your last publishing course, and you get access within the first 2 weeks of starting your first course.
Thank you so much. And there was a question that Kelvin, actually, that I think you answered briefly in the chat, but I thought it'd be interesting to discuss. Jesse was wondering, besides the publishing program being fast-tracked, what is the difference between the intensive versus the online publishing certificate? I don't know if you could speak to that briefly, Kelvin or Meg.
I could speak to that. So the intensive allows you to set aside 3 months and to take 6 of the 8 courses in those 3 months. It's very different from taking an online course slowly over 12 weeks. So you're taking what normally takes 12 weeks in 2 weeks. It is what we call a boot camp. When we say intensive, that is, you are jumping in feet first, and you're covering the same amount of material. I work closely with the instructors to streamline it so that you are not a wet rag at the end of this, so that you come out of it ready to jump into your first internship or your entry level position. But it is intense, and it's a very exciting experience, and some of our absolute star students come out of this program. I don't know if that answered it.
Yeah, no. I think that definitely just sort of helps explain the difference, I think, to someone who might be considering both.
Right. Well, the slower approach, if you are balancing, let's say you have 2 small children, you have a full-time job, and I don't know, maybe you have another complication, another demand on your life, you couldn't do the boot camp, you couldn't do the intensive. But our other program is very flexible. You can take 1 course a term. You can take 5 years to do the certificate. So that would be, and please feel free to contact me directly with questions about your own personal situation. I don't know if Trug, are we putting email addresses at the end?
We're just putting the email address for the general email, but we could, great. Oh yeah. So
no, that's great. It will get to me. Yes.
Perfect. So James, there is a question in the chat about for the film intensive, are students in class every weekday? Are there any online courses?
So yes, we have classes Monday to Friday. Similar to publishing, this is an intensive program, which means we are actually doing the same courses that are in the degree program, the BFA film degree program. They're the same courses. So we cover in weeks, similar again to publishing. We in weeks what you would do in months. So yes, it is every day. There may be some days that you're more engaged with, out shooting and doing something else, but there will be basically sort of class for each day of the week. This year we don't have any online, not unless something weird happens, like pandemic or something. Touch wood that's not happening. But we are planning to have all the classes in the IMA building, which is at 22 Bond Street. So we have basically film department. We have our own floor. We have our own studio. We have our own sound recording and mixing theater, and we have our own screening room. It's all there in one place.
Perfect, thank you. And so I think we've gotten, if you have anyone has a last minute questions, this is your chance to put it in the chat. Otherwise, I have a question about registration. Oh, I think something just popped up. But before I have a question, is there a specific deadline? Because these are special summer offerings that aren't available, year round. Is there a deadline for registration that we should mention?
Well, for the film program, depending upon what if we haven't reached our capacity, people could, come right up until the end of April. It's possible. So at the moment, there are spots available, but there's, as I said, there's no harm in checking right up to almost the last minute. We begin on May the 8th is our first classes. So if there is capacity, still room in the program, then anytime up to then.
Right, but sooner the better, probably. So that,
Yeah, absolutely.
so that
Yeah.
you can
It is filling up.
secure your spot. There's a couple of questions here about the film school, some new questions. Someone is wondering, Shelley is wondering, is it possible to take a tour of the film facilities?
Yeah, we often get people wanting to do that. It's kind of difficult right now. They're, it's undergraduate students are busy using all the facilities, etc. I believe the administration of School of Image Arts does organize some tours. If people do have an interest, if they email me, I can pass their name on to Stephanie Law in the administration of the School of Image Arts, and they can find out when those tours might happen.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I should mention that there's also a really great video about the summer film school that you can watch on our website on the certificate page that kind of shows you a little bit of some of students actually at work in the studio. So there is a question here, a few questions from Dipinder. Is the summer film school an intro level course, or is it an in-depth intensive course? How do students work with film? Please talk about the physical things involved in learning, like cutting film, darkroom techniques, etc.
Well, darkroom techniques is not really relevant to filmmaking. We don't do a technician does the processing, etc. All that. We will not be cutting the film. We're not the film you will capture with film as a capture medium, but it will be transferred to video. And so hardly anybody in the industry any longer cuts film. It's difficult to deal with that. It's much longer process. It's much quicker. And if you're going to go into the industry, the only people that would be cutting film nowadays might be the odd experimental filmmaker. But otherwise, industry wide, Anybody who captures with film would be editing digitally. So you'll learn all those techniques.
Right. Thank you, James. Actually, there's a follow-up question from the same person. Maybe you could elaborate just briefly. What equipment, like such as cameras, do you use to learn and teach? Do students get hands-on experience with everything? That will be our last question for today.
Students do get hands-on. That's the only way to learn, as far as I'm concerned. So you start out, you'll learn how to use a Bolex. The most important thing with image capture are the lenses. So more important than learning a camera is to learn how to use the lens. That's what cinematographers use. The most important aspect is learning the lenses and what you can do with the lenses, how that lens controls your image, etc. So yeah, you'll definitely be hands-on learning those, and then as we graduate we'll be moving to digital after you've done a couple of films with film. We'll be moving on to digital. You'll learn how to use digital, how it's different, what are the requirements needed in consideration of digital as opposed to film, and all of the post-production techniques as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. There was another question on the chat, but I just said to them to email you, James, directly
Sure.
with their specific
I'll watch for it.
concern. So thank you so much. That was such a great session. Thank you to our guest speaker, Noah, today, and thanks to all of you for taking the time out of your day to attend today's information session. If you're interested in learning more or enrolling in either of these intensive programs, please visit continuing.torontomu.ca. The websites for the program, the web pages are also in the chat if you need it. And if you have any other questions, please email us at ce@torontomu.ca. You'll also get a follow-up email with this information, all the information that's in the side chat panel, as well as a survey within 24 to 48 hours. On behalf of the Chang School and our presenters, Meg and James and Noah, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.